I think it's the Italian, you know. They love to laugh. I mean, you only have to do this, and laugh just... Pour some more champagne. Trollop, stop. Everything else is very, very loose. Why shouldn't that be loose, too?
Oh, my God, no,
Dudley Moore is a jealous husband, and Nastasia Kinski as his sexy young wife, and Unfaithfully Yours, one of the movies we're going to be reviewing this week. And across the aisle from me is Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune.
And across the aisle from me, Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times. Now, in addition to Unfaithfully Yours, we'll also be reviewing Blame It on Rio, a sexy comedy starring Michael Caine, who is having an affair with his best friend's daughter. Also, Android, a science fiction adventure about a mad scientist's search for a perfect robot, and Entre Nous, a very special French film about the liberation of two married women. But first, Roger begins with the latest Steve Martin comedy.
The whole idea of the lonely guy began a few years ago in Esquire magazine with some articles by Bruce J. Friedman. The articles became a book, and now the book has become a movie, and the lonely guy has been personified by Steve Martin. Focus remains more or less the same, that there is a particular state of being known as lonely guyness, and that once you enter it, you're a marked man. Girls don't date you. Dogs run away from you. Here's what happens when a lonely guy goes out to dinner all by himself.
Yes. Hi, do you have a table for dinner?
Certainly, sir. How many in your party?
I'm alone.
Alone? Follow me, sir. This way, sir.
Thank you.
Would you care for a cocktail, sir?
Yes, I'd like a Totkin Vonic.
A Totkin Vonic?
Yes.
Very good, sir.
Oh, and Captain, could you turn out the spotlight, please?
Certainly.
And could everybody go back to talking?
Certainly.
That's one of the best scenes in the movie, maybe because everybody can identify with that scene. Whenever I eat alone in a restaurant, I always take along something to read, you know. Like, I'm not really here to eat this food, I'm really here to read this book.
Or you're waiting for someone to arrive.
Exactly, wait, they're not here, you know, it's been since Tuesday. Since there are a lot of lonely guys and a lot of lonely girls in the world, you'd think this whole movie would be easy to identify with, but unfortunately it's not. And I think the reason for that, and I hate to say it, is Steve Martin. He has such a creepy screen personality that it gets on my nerves. He always seems to be sneering at something. He doesn't seem to really like himself. So you look at this movie and you say, Steve Martin is a guy who deserves to be lonely.
Well, I didn't find him sneering in this film. I liked this film. I liked his last film, The Man with Two Brains, and I think what I liked about him is that they were both so silly. That is a classic comedy moment. If Mel Brooks did it or Woody Allen, people will be writing about it as a classic in the history of movie comedy. I think this film has other great scenes. There's all these guys, he goes to a bridge, and all these guys are committing suicide right by him throughout the whole picture. I think that's a funny idea. They also have a scene where he's on a rooftop, and he's calling out to his girlfriend, and there are other guys start popping up at other rooftops. They're all like hound dogs calling out funny bits.
But you know, it's funny, as you enact those scenes right here, I smile more than I did when I watched the movie because they're written as funny scenes. Neil Simon had a hand in writing the screenplay. After having seen all of Steve Martin's movies, I've eventually gotten to the point where I've got to admit something that I don't feel about any other actor, and I've got to be honest with you, I don't like him. There's something about him that makes me feel creepy. I feel that if the character were more innately sympathetic, if Woody Allen were playing the role, or Richard Dreyfuss, or Michael Keaton, or somebody like that, the movie would work twice as good.
I think it's your problem for this film. I don't think it's the film's fault. I think this film is very, very funny until maybe 2/3 of the way through, where they try and turn him into a success rather than a flop. That doesn't work.
But you like Steve Martin?
I liked Steve Martin doing this picture, which is this review. Coming up next at the movies, Dudley Moore suspects his beautiful young wife is cheating on him, so he gets a little upset. He plots to murder her.
In Italy, we do it all the time after lunch.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do.
Going to your office must be fun.
Our next film stars Dudley Moore as an insanely jealous husband, and he's got reason to be concerned. That's because he's a symphony conductor married to the beautiful Nastasia Kinski, and through a series of mistaken assumptions, he believes that she is having an affair with Armand Asante, who is a violin soloist with Dudley Moore's orchestra. Now, to try and catch them in the act, Moore goes to Asante's apartment, not realizing that, yes, he is having an affair, but not with the woman Moore suspects. Now, one more thing to fully appreciate this scene. You have to know that Dudley Moore gave his wife a gold pumpkin-shaped pendant.
Oh. Are you okay? What? Are you all right? Yeah. Good. Chilly out? Huh? Brutal. It's a closet. Yeah, it's a big one. What brings you over? What? What brings you over here? I wanted to talk to you about that, you know, bar 34 in the first movement. You know, you want to broaden it? I think we should push straight through.
Let's do it. I'm taking a shower. I got the water running.
No, I don't hear the water.
It's a relatively quiet shower.
Yeah, I'll be right back. Thought you were my wife.
Now, later in the film, still believing that they're having an affair, Moore dreams up a wildly complicated scheme to kill his wife and frame Asante, but to do this, he needs a tape recording of Asante saying some suspicious words.
I wanted you to tell us the story about the two Armenian guys, the twins.
The Armenian twins?
Zelda and Mimi.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, I never met Armenian twins in my life.
Max, the Armenian twins.
No.
You told me about these two girls that you met, and they Armenian girls. Armenian girls.
So the night I spent with the two Argentinian girls from the boarding school in Buenos Aires.
Right. Tell Daniela. Tell her. This'll kill you.
See that "this'll kill you" line he's going to use later on. Now, toward the end of the film, when this movie finally gets down to the acting out of its murder plot, there is some genuinely funny slapstick involving Dudley Moore, who proves to be a most adept physical comedian. But to get to that point, it is a long, laborious, complicated wait. Unfaithfully Yours is a remake of an old-fashioned 30s screwball comedy, but one of the keys to those older films was that they had a terrific pace. They really moved along, and if the story was preposterous, who cared? There really wasn't time to think about it in those films of the 30s. Unfaithfully Yours, however, takes its own sweet times. Weren't those two clips kind of slow and deadly? It's not a bad movie, but we just have to wait so long for the funny stuff.
I think it is a bad movie, and I think it's so bad that when the so-called funny stuff comes, it's not that funny. And I call this an example of my old friend, the idiot plot. This plot depends upon the fact that Dudley Moore doesn't have one piece of information. When he's talking to Armand Asante, and they're talking about, Asante says, well, of course I love her, so what if she's married? And Dudley Moore thinks he's talking about his wife. All Asante has to say is, no, not your wife, this other woman. One word. During an hour and 15 minutes, at any point in that, one word and the movie would be over. And so you're sitting there totally frustrated.
But the only reason, I agree with you, but the only reason that you're doing it, because there are movies of the 30s that have the same idiot plot, you don't notice it. This thing needs to be speeded up. This done in fast motion with a Howard Hawks director instead of the guy who directed this could have been a very funny picture. Or, as it was done, Preston Sturges.
Could have been a funny picture, but I'm just sitting there saying, how can he be so stupid, you know? Anyway,
how can the director be so stupid?
That's another good question. Our next movie is named Android, and it's a science fiction story that takes place millions of miles from Earth in an isolated space station where a mad scientist, played by Klaus Kinski, is trying to create artificial forms of life. Now, talk about a lonely guy. One day, Kinski and his assistant, an android named Max, received an SOS call from a spaceship in the vicinity, and Max is thrilled to hear that there's a woman on board the ship. And Kinski, though, is annoyed that his research is being interrupted.
Some people arrived. I put them in the foreman's quarters.
Why didn't you wake me?
You said you didn't want to be disturbed.
Max, I warned you. You are not under any circumstances to make your own decisions.
Yes, sir, but the code specifically states...
Don't tell me about the code. What type of ship are they flying?
An SCRP.
How many are they?
3, sir. And one of them...
You didn't say anything about the experiment?
No, sir. Of course not.
Later in the film, Max gives a guided tour to Maggie, the woman from the spaceship, and introduces her to Cassandra, a recently manufactured android.
Her temperature's regulated in much the same way as yours.
But it isn't...
Alive? Yes, she is alive. As you are. Or I am. Of course, she'll function with a degree of elegance and sophistication far beyond my capabilities.
I guess you could call Android sort of a cross between Silent Running, that movie about Bruce Dern isolated on a lonely space station, and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where your best friends might turn out to be pod people. Android is not another dumb space opera. It's an interesting movie with a lot of humor, an intriguing plot, and some thought-provoking ideas about who does and who does not deserve to be called a human being. I like this movie.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good line you just had there at the end, because I think that's what comes up. Obviously, Max, though he is the perfect human, mechanical human, is the person with the heart, and we see it in that scene, and it's a nicely written scene right there. I like this picture almost as much for what it was not than for what it was. I mean, it is not with little toys running around. It's a character study just set in another world, and I enjoyed it for that. It was a more adult kind of science fiction film than we've been getting lately.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, too. It's just now getting released in this country. It wasn't going to get a commercial release here. Then it went over to London and Paris and became a hit, and so now it's come back to America through the back door.
I just hope it's not too gentle for the young audience that this film is probably going to be marketed to. I hope that adults would know that this is a sci-fi film that they might like too. Coming up next at the movies, nude beaches and nubile teenage girls are just too much for Michael Caine to handle on vacation in Rio de Janeiro.
Jennifer, about last night.
Kiss me first.
Kiss you out to spank you.
Oh, please, and bite me.
Blame It on Rio is sort of an imitation of the hit film 10, this time taking place all among friends. Michael Caine and his best friend and their 2 attractive teenage daughters wind up taking a vacation together without wives in Rio de Janeiro, and the southern breezes and nude beaches get everyone a little bit crazy, especially Michael Caine, who has sex with his best friend's daughter. She just overwhelms him on the beach one day, and the day after, she's ecstatic, but he's quite embarrassed.
You're a fantastic lover.
Don't talk like that.
Why? Will you tell my father on me?
There's nothing to tell. Last night never happened.
I know. I was there when it didn't.
No, I mean it. It was just one wild moment. That's all it was. You've got to forget it. We've both got to forget it.
And?
No. You're more than that.
Am I?
Jennifer, don't.
What's the matter?
You're too next to me.
You want me to go?
You'd better.
One kiss and I will.
All right. A little one.
A little one.
Later in the film, the girl's father sneaks a peek at her diary. He knows she's had an affair while on the trip. He just wants to know with whom.
Come on, Jennifer. What's his name? What's his name?
Aha! Victor, I can explain.
Explain what?
What?
You said you could explain something.
I can. Yes. This. I can explain this. It's youth. That's all. Kids exaggerate. They make things up. They make people up.
Oh, yeah? Did she make this up? I go to sleep with a smile on my lips. I love his sweet mouth, his funny little teeth. I love looking deep into his soul through his lovely blue eyes. Eyes that seem to see the real me for the very first time. Why are you wearing those?
I'm getting a style.
Just like that?
How else?
That's a cute bit when he says those funny little teeth and Michael Caine covers his teeth. But it is hard to accept that he can't figure out what's going on there. Now, as for the whole film, that kind of younger girl, older man fantasy has been popular in a lot of films of late. Sociologically, I think it's some kind of reaction to the strong women's movement. Men want to see men dominate women in the movies, I think. Blame It on Rio is a bit preposterous in the beginning and in the middle. Now, how can I come back and recommend the movie after that? That's because it did win me over at the end, not with a comedy scene, not even with a sex scene. It won me over with a strong scene of forgiveness. And that caught me by surprise, and I went out of this picture thinking about that as much as the sex in the beginning.
I don't think the ending of the picture quite redeemed it for me, and I'll tell you, I think that you're right to compare it to 10. I think that they're trying to get the same kind of chemistry between Michael Caine, who's a very good actor, and Michelle Johnson, I think her name is, who was the Bo Derek person in this.
Would be, not quite for me.
Well, it's a matter of taste, but obviously she's supposed to be that kind of person. But the difference is the relationship has this enormous age difference, and she is really young. She is not Bo Derek, 19 or 20. She is a child, and that is potentially such a serious subject matter that the idea that they treat it as a situation comedy with who's going to jump out the window when somebody else comes in the door just doesn't fit.
No, the film approaches sleazy. There's no getting around that.
It approaches it real closely.
Yeah, and at the same time, and I had that reaction, I just say that at the very end, I felt it justified getting close to sleazy. It can be a moral question, we can debate that, but in movie terms, I felt it justified it marginally. I'm not the biggest fan of this picture.
In movie terms, maybe, but I think it raises some real important issues and just totally dismisses them because to even look at them for a little bit would ruin their whole idea of this lighthearted comedy. Well, next at the movies, 2 French women survived the war and their marriages. Our next movie is named Entre Nous. That's French for Between Us. And the movie is about what happens between 2 French women in the years after the Second World War. The movie stars Isabelle Huppert, who's saved from a prison camp by a guard who she later marries. And this guard is a nice man, but he's insecure, and he has a streak of really mean jealousy in civilian life as a garage mechanic. Then Huppert meets a woman played by the actress Moo, and they become best friends. That causes problems after Huppert's mechanic husband makes a pass at Moo.
Carlier m'a trouvé du travail. C'est pas vrai. À Paris? Non, non. Il ouvre une galerie à Lyon. Mais c'est formidable.
Laisse-moi monter. Non, tu monteras pas. Tu m'énerves maintenant.
Et Costa, qu'est-ce qu'il en dit? Oh, il est ravi. Du moment que ça fait rentrer un peu d'argent.
Elle veut pas me laisser monter dans l'arbre.
Oh, mais regarde-moi ça. Regarde comment tu t'es mise, toi.
Elle arrête pas de nous embêter. C'est pas vrai.
Allez, viens, on va se débarbouiller. René, qu'est-ce que je t'ai dit? Sois gentil avec Sophie.
Tiens, je vais porter un petit verre à Madeleine. Alors, Madeleine, petite goutte?
Oh non, c'est trop fort, je vais être sous.
Si, mais il est tout abîmé, on l'a fait. Allez, avance maintenant.
Où est Léna?
Oh, décidément, il y en a que pour Léna. Moi, je vous intéresse pas. C'est vrai, vous me regardez jamais. Moi, je vous regarde souvent.
Those 2 women become really close friends. They share their dreams and ambitions. Finally, they open a boutique together, but Isabelle Huppert's husband, who we just saw there, becomes insanely jealous of the relationship between the women. He suspects that they both look down on him, that they're the next thing to lesbians, and in one of the movie's really powerful scenes, he tears their shop apart with his bare hands. Entre Nous is a movie that takes a while to get started. A lot of the material at the beginning of the film about the war years doesn't really seem to be necessary, but once it settles down to tell the story of that relationship, it's amazingly perceptive about these 2 women trying to control their own lives at a time when that was almost a declaration of war against men.
I think it's a fabulous film, and I'll make this prediction. It's only February, but I'm going to say that I don't plan on seeing a better film this year. I think it's really quite special. And when people hear what the theme is about these women's liberation, you would think it would be standard bad men, good women, and, sort of a French unmarried woman or something like that. This film is very sophisticated because the women do establish their own lives, but at a very direct cost. This guy is not a bad guy. He is very clearly a product of his time. He is a good provider. He is given a chance to be a full character.
He's a good husband on the terms in which he was raised. In the 1930s and 1940s, growing up in France, his job was to go out and work hard and put food on the table and put clean clothes on his kids. His wife's job was to stay at home. That's all he knows. And, and he's actually wounded at her rejection, is what he sees it as.
And he is a better father, frankly, than she is a mother. That is not her agenda, motherhood. Her agenda is taking care of herself. It shows. This has all the force. People are talking about terms of endearment and how it has the rhythms of life. This film has it just as well.
I was going to compare it to Terms of Endearment because both of them do cover a period of 10 or 20, 25 years and show how lives change during that time and people change.
An excellent, excellent film. So much for the main movies on this show. To recap our reactions, Roger hated Steve Martin's The Lonely Guy. He votes thumbs down. He really hated Steve Martin. I disagree. I thought it was very funny and a little bit touching for at least 2/3 of the way. Thumbs up from me. We agreed on the Dudley Moore screwball comedy. It only works at the very end of the film. We agreed also that Android, the sci-fi flick, is worthwhile. A pair of thumbs up for that. And we differ in our appreciation of Blame It on Rio. Roger thought it was preposterous all the way through, kind of sleazy. I was won over only at the very, very end. And finally, the French film Entre Nous was a film that this week we were both the most enthusiastic about. I think it's going to turn out to be, as I said, one of the year's best.
So Entre Nous, which is going into release right now around the country. That's it for this week. Next